Good morning and welcome to Great Trees and Women's Temple. This morning we have a special speaker. We have two. But first we'd like to have the opening sutra. An unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept. I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teaching. And now a brief statement about Dhamma. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of Dana Paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice Dana is to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment or expectation when opportunities arise. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a Dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. And now we'd like to have Teijo do the introduction for this morning's talk.
Liliane is not showing herself because she's all hooked up to some kind of contraption so that she doesn't move her spine. Because a few weeks ago, she fell down some stairs and had to have surgery. She had 3 fractures in her spine. And so I was going to give this talk, and then she called me yesterday and said, let me try. And so we spoke a little bit this morning, and what we talked about was maybe us having a little bit of a dialogue, because she might get into a coughing thing, which has been happening too. So Liliane, do you want to say hello?
Yes, can you hear me fine?
Can everybody hear her?
Yes, okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you, Teijo, for giving me this opportunity. I complicated things a little bit here, but no, and then yes. So thank you for being so flexible and working with me. The topic, it's very strange. When I was going through surgery, I mean, the whole time at the hospital where I was immobilized and could not move at all, actually, I did think quite a bit about this Dharma talk. I had not forgotten. And so, there were a few things that came to my mind, and I thought, oh, I'd like to do it while it's still fresh. It's still there, because right now there's the fire, which is the theme of the season. Summer is fire energy, which is heart energy. And I know I'm kind of in a bubble of difficulty, of course, but also a special bubble of heart opening. Because, I mean, we all know that we all go through difficult moments and suffering. And when we suffer and our world is, all upside down, there's kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but I think we can all relate to it. There's a softness of the heart that happens. It's like we're vulnerable. We can't be the way we are, like for me right now, just not being able to show my face because I feel too ugly for that. And that's really not just feeling, it's true. I fell on my face. I mean, it's just, and yes, it is a shock. And at the same time, I can really feel a softening of the heart. So I thought, well, I'd better not let that opportunity go. The topic was opening the mind, opening the heart. Go for it, girl. That's the universe is putting you to the test. So see what you can do with it. So here I am, and I'm going to share with you a few thoughts about opening the heart, opening the mind, and some of them, and indeed, Teijo, at any point, if you have anything you want to say, because it's something I know from Taoism about the heart, and I can understand it in some ways, but not completely. So let me tell you what we're talking about here in terms of season. So we're in the summer season, and we're emerging already in terms of lunar calendar, we're already well into it. And we're emerging out of the spring season, which is more of wind, element of wind. And we're getting into the fire of the heart. And so the organ that is associated to summer is indeed the heart and the small intestine. So there's a mystery also of that small intestine. It's easy to forget, to say, oh, the noble organ of summer, the heart, but there's also the small intestine into that. And in the old Taoist view of the five energies, what corresponds to the heart is indeed the mind, consciousness. And many of the things that we ascribe to the brain in our culture is actually ascribed to the heart. And it's real, meaning that it's a tool of diagnosis, it's a tool of healing. So the word that corresponds to heart energy is Shen. We spell it S-H-E-N, the Shen. And the Shen has many, many translations, and it's a bit like Qi. You find it in many, many words, and it can have many different meanings, at least from our points of view, because obviously for old people, this was all one. So Shen can mean the mind. So meaning thinking, discriminating, mental activities, that is ascribed to the heart. It also means, it can mean divine. So it can mean God, or it can mean the gods in the plural, or it can be just divinity or spirit. It also means the personality when we talk about someone's Shen. So, and we say, when I say we, I put myself in that Taoist community because these are my tools of work for many years now. We diagnose the Shen in the eyes. We say that the Shen is perturbed or is present or not. So, for example, you can see with somebody who suffers from Alzheimer's that the Shen is disturbed because the eyes are empty. So the Shen shows in the eyes, in the look, in the way we look. And, when we say about someone that they look good or they look happy, pretty much we are evaluating their Shen, their heart, mind. It also means, it's a fire energy. And it also means, and that's very interesting for us all here, it also means concentration. According to the old tradition, concentration is the most important quality of the Shen and of the heart. So, for example, when we are very forgetful, that means our Shen is not present. And so, of course, it carried into Buddhism in the practice of concentration and the breath and zazen and meditation and all of that. And it has another meaning also, which is circumspect, being careful, being aware. And there you can, I'm not going to go too much into that, but you can link it to the small intestine, because one of the functions of the small intestine is to extract the minerals that give the color red to the fire of our blood. So B12, iron are actually assimilated in the small intestine. So there is in the small intestine heart duality that same thing about circumspect, meaning it's a bit like we are gold diggers. We have to be able to see what is the real gold and not absorb just anything. Part of the small intestine is to give the true gold, the red color of the blood, to the heart. And of course, the heart is considered in old texts the emperor, meaning, of course, it's the seat of life, but mostly it is the seat of consciousness and is nourished by all the other organs in order to function. So, like I said, it opens into the eyes. Another thing that we say about the Shen is that it manifests in two ways. One is in the speech, and one is in the hands. So, for example, in Qigong, the work on the hand, on the energy of the hand, is very important. And the arms in particular carry the energy. The hands in particular carry the energy of the heart. So, meaning that our voice, the quality of our voice, not so much the strength is more the lung, but the harmony, the pace, the overall harmony is said to emanate from the heart mind. So that's true of any type of talk, whether it's like me now speaking, or anybody who does a conference, or in theater. The voice is the emanation of that heart mind. The interesting part of that is that means we can also heal our heart with the voice, with our voice, poetry, declamation, or singing, making our voice harmonious. And there too, if I may, for a moment digress, or at least go on that topic. In the hospital, when I was on my back and was not allowed to do anything at all, not even drink, or that was really the hard part, being so thirsty in preparation for the surgery. And I didn't know what was happening because I could not look, I could not turn my head, I couldn't do anything. So one thing that became really important to me very quickly was the voices of people. And I was just delighted, stunned by how much I could know about people before they came into my field of vision, just through their voice. And I know there was one lady who asked me if I was, how did she put it, a nurse. She asked me if I was, I can't remember the word she used, visionary, or if I used magnetism, something like that, something a bit occult, just because I knew before she came that she was worried. And I said, oh, there's a lot on your mind right now, isn't it? You're worried. And she did not deny it. She said, how did you know? And to her was some kind of, voodoo type of but it was very easy. You know, when you listen to the voice of people, so much can be told. And I really appreciated all the people who had, you know, who used a soft voice, who were respectful, and anything that was, you know, high pitched or grating was, you know, was jarring and was difficult. But it was nice to open to people that way through their voice, and to realize how much it did carry what was on their mind, you know. um, One thing about that heart mind that has always been a question for me, it reminds me of a story I heard from a practitioner of Siddha Yoga. And the practitioner of Siddha Yoga explained in a book, and I don't recall the title of the book, but he did say in a book that his teacher used to say, because it's true in India too, of course, about the heart being the seat of thinking and the seat of the mind and consciousness. And he said every time he heard his teacher say that, he was so embarrassed and feeling that, you know, nowadays people know better, and it looked so old-fashioned to talk about the, you know, thinking, you know, that we know it's in the brain and not in the heart. As an aside too, there's no consensus in the scientific community as to where consciousness is located. There's huge debate about that, so we won't go into that. But anyway, whenever he heard his teacher say that, he was embarrassed for him, thinking, oh, you know, people are going to think it's too old-fashioned to speak that way. And he said it went on for a long time until he was able to let go of that and think that even if he didn't agree, at least maybe he could put it aside and accept that his teacher believed that thinking was in the heart and consciousness was in the heart and not in the brain. And he said that finally, after a few years of practice, he went on a very long retreat. And that at some point during that retreat, he suddenly had the experience of how thinking was located in the heart. He said for a few days, it did not last, and he didn't say whether he was able to get back to that state later on. But for a few days, it was in such a state that he could feel that thoughts, but maybe it was not thoughts the way we usually talk about them, emanated from the heart, from his chest, and not from his head and his mind, and that there was a direct connection with people that way. So that was his experience. I have not personally had that experience, so I would like to. I would like to, but maybe the closest I came to that was during those few days lying down and being immobilized and being linked to people through the voice, and you know, until they came into my field of vision. And another thing that I realized is that, and the title of this talk was Opening the Heart, Opening the Mind. We do say to have an open heart, and we do say to keep an open mind. And obviously, in the old Taoist tradition, that is one and the same thing. You cannot have an open heart and a closed mind. you cannot have an open mind and a closed heart. So it's one and the same. So one of the things too that I realized was that there were a few moments that would bring warmth and heart to those meetings with people, nurses mostly, with an open heart. Meaning by that, and I gave that example to Teijo a little bit ago, there was, for example, the lady in the ambulance who took me. And of course, I was panicked. I didn't know what was going on. And it was, well, you can imagine. So at some point, I did ask this lady what her name was. And she responded, Ambulance 72. And so I said to her, well, that cannot possibly be your name. And that was the name of the company, the ambulance company, of course. And I said, you must have another name. And she laughed. She said, oh, you want my name? I said, yes. And she said, wow, in 7 years of doing ambulance work, this is the first time I'm asked that question. And then the driver also told me his name, and he said, first time for me too. And, you know, it was a bit by chance. Maybe it was just a reflex to feel better. I don't know. But that moment, it's like there was suddenly a little wave of love, compassion, whatever we want to call it, that was exchanged between them and me. And there was a closeness that came from that open heart that they had and I had for a moment. And I felt much better when I arrived, because we laughed a bit. They told me a bit about their life, and it didn't last long, maybe, you know, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but it helped. And so afterwards, I continued doing that with when I could, because I was not always strong enough, but when I could, you know, asking something or saying, opening my heart to the person who was next to me or who came to me, about their name, about when I could see them, you know, the color of their hair, the color of their eyes, something that would give that opening of the heart and give connection. Because I think we all know, one thing we all know, whether we talk mind or heart, we all know that we can say we close our hearts, we close our minds when we contract. There's a contraction that comes from that. And so opening the heart is the opposite, is when we make, I know Teijo likes the word spaciousness, you know, that we can find within Zazen, within meditation. And so that sense of spaciousness gives us release. It's like a cool breeze that opens and widens the space. Another image that comes to me, it's because summer is the season of the heart, and the nature of the heart is fiery, warming. So, and it can be destructive, of course. It's a force. It's a fire. So fire can be purifying, it can be warming, it can be destructive. It's an energy that spreads easily. And so we have the power, if we are aware of that opening of the heart, that opening of the mind, that we have that power to spread love or hate. And so, of course, the summer season is particularly difficult for that. Just like spring is difficult with the wind, the season of the heart is difficult because it's already overheated. So it's very easy to spread fire. I remember actually when living in Arizona, one day we asked the firemen to come and evaluate our house to let us know, you know, the dangers of fires around the house. And it was stunning how unaware we were of all the potential fires that, you know, fire hazards that were around the house. And basically, they encouraged us also to make space around the house, you know, to make sure nothing was too piled up, that nothing was left unkept, and you know the danger of certain things one next to one another. And it was really a big revelation, and you know, to make space so that the fire would not spread so easily. So I think that when we open our heart, when we open our minds, in a way we do that as well. We make space around ourselves, and it gives a bit of room for communication, for, you know, so that it's not as jagged, as jarring, and that it's the same process. And then of course, when we talk about Taoism, the diagnosis of the Shen of the heart is very important, because it's indeed our Shen, our personality, that depends on it. So that means that means the health of our heart. And for the health of our heart, we need cooling things in the summer. We need to be very careful about whatever is overheating. So even things that, you know, are fine in the winter can easily create fire in the summer. So too much tea, too much coffee, too much sugar, meat, barbecue, all of those that we enjoy. And as I can tell you for sure, in the summer, there are lots and lots of heart and digestive issues. So we need more, you know, we have the luck to be able to enjoy in our areas things like cucumbers, watermelon, you know, all the things that cool the heart and will give us that space, that cooling, so that we don't react and take fire right away, you know, at the slightest hint of discomfort or a reaction in someone we don't like, and so on. As you well know, you know, prison riots usually happen in the spring and fire and summer, and conflicts tend to erupt and get bigger in the summer. And of course, we have more and more fires spreading everywhere in the world, you know, in our forests. So meaning that opening the mind, opening the heart, making space, spaciousness around the heart is becoming, I question it. I really want to understand it deeply in that old philosophy of Taoism, what that fire energy means, because obviously right now in our world, we don't understand it, and it's out of control. You know, in nuclear arms, in firearms, in conflict, in politics, you see fire everywhere, totally untamed. And so with closed minds, closed hearts. So I think it's really a challenge for our time to open our minds and open our hearts, and that it's something we need to understand better. You know, what does it mean, heart, mind? Because we tend to think, you know, very often when we have a decision to make, we say, oh, my heart says yes, but my head says no. Well, it means, the way I understand it, it means when we come to that conclusion, we're on the wrong track. We're not asking the right question, because there is no difference between the heart and the mind. So usually what we mean by that is that we have choices that are dictated by our environment, or maybe money considerations, or maybe duty. But really the heart mind is one, and at some deep level we know what needs to happen. So, and I know, of course, for myself, that it's not always easy, but maybe if we can reframe our heart mind and deepen that meaning of the fire energy of summer to our processes of consciousness, that is a help too, because fire is also the source of light. That's what illuminates. And we talked about enlightenment, of course, enlightenment, light. Great mystics of all traditions talk about the light, about the fire that consumes the heart and the mind when they get into that state of sometimes ecstasy or enlightenment, or but it's something that goes beyond the usual processes of our minds and heart and the separation we make between the two. So just to finish here, I often think also about the, you know, being a herbalist and working more and more with herbs, and discovering more and more herbs. I was thinking about the heart mind of flowers and plants. How, you know, you see a little daisy, or you see a honeysuckle, these flowers in particular that are so beautiful, smell so strong, and, you know, come and go. And they all have medicinal properties. So for example, honeysuckle, if you have honeysuckle growing in your yard, by all means, pick the flowers and let them dry, and then keep them in your pharmacy, because honeysuckle is a great remedy for fever and viral infection. That's a major herb, okay? So what that means is, to me, it's the flower is the heart and the mind of the flower. The heart in its beauty and its smell, and its mind, it's also, you know, it's nature. Its nature, which is like the honeysuckle, its nature is to have that gift to help fevers, which of course people of old knew that. Same thing with forsythia. Forsythia and honeysuckle are two major herbs for fever in Chinese medicine. And so somehow too, I'm more inviting you to dream and reflect, you know, summer dreams, like Shakespeare said, you know, summer night dreams. There's something so magical about summer and evenings and smells and beauty and insects. And all of that is the heart mind of the world, you know, buzzing around. And, you know, so, and those flowers, those plants, they give their being just by being what they are, who they are. And for us human beings, we work so hard trying to be something, when mostly what we have to do is allow that spaciousness and get in touch with our heart mind, which is what we are. we have nothing to do, just like the plants. That's what and who they are. And so you collect them, well, they give their essence and they heal. They know how to do that. And we are all flowers in the same way, with different talents, different voices, different harmonious sounds. It's when we try so hard that we get out of harmony. But when we just rest in who we are, I believe, and maybe right now I feel that more strongly because I can't do anything that I'm used to doing. I can't even wash myself. I can't even so if I was not able to feel that heart mind, I think I would be despaired, you know. And of course I'm grateful because I could have been paralyzed and I'm not. But at the same time, I'm really sustained by all the experience at the hospital of the people, the heart minds of the people I met, through their voices, through their care, to see all that huge humanity that was, on foot to try to help me, little insignificant me right in the middle, and I was taken care of, and it was so amazing. And to be able to connect to so many people that way, like there was a sweet lady, who accompanied me just before the surgery with her voice. She helped me with a guided meditation to take me to the edge of consciousness when I left. And right now, there's my husband who helps me and cooks for me, and I receive messages. I have received messages from Teijo and friends in the States. So very vulnerable state. And at the same time, I think I want to take advantage of this very, very special moment where I can feel the vibrancy of life, the vibrancy of insects in the garden, the vibrancy of flowers, the heart mind, and the vibrancy of the voices of people who were around me, and connecting that way. So I will stop here, I think, or my heart mind thinks. And thank you for being with me. I hope it made sense. I'm not quite sure, but it was from the heart that I wanted to speak. And thank Teijo, because you have no idea, Teijo, how your message just made my day. I can't even tell you. Everything was like magnified, and the friendship, and so I know. And you did say, I think if I remember one of your messages, you did say, take advantage of that moment, for practice. And I thought, oh, I can't remember how you worded it. It was not, uh, how to say, it was very sweet. And I thought, yes, that's right. Those moments are very special when our heart mind cannot find its usual territory, unknown territory. And so, of course, I'll be happy to get back to my normal territory too, but that's for sure. But anyway, that's also why I wanted to be part of this today. And I thank you for letting me try it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, you did ask me to be in dialogue with you, so I do have a few things to
Yes,
say.
please.
One of them is this word concentration. I think that's a word I always struggle with in Buddhism, because concentration very much in our culture means something we do with our minds, our studies and stuff like that. And but I think what you're talking about is really and this is what I picked up when I read Thich Nhat Hanh's book about the Four Noble Truths. What's the name of that? The Heart of the Buddhist Teaching. Yeah, I mean, this was the first time that I kind of got this idea of what one-pointedness is, because concentration is sometimes called one-pointedness. And that one-pointedness is just really like creating that spaciousness that allows our heart to open up, or our heart to not just open up, but to express itself. I was talking, I don't know who it was I've been talking to about this, but I was talking to somebody about how much Katagiri Roshi, I think Lorna and I were talking about it, how much Katagiri Roshi's presence was his teaching. And his greatest teaching was when he was dying. That's when I got the greatest teaching from him. And I think that's, you know, when that space, somehow we're able to create that space around ourselves, that's when that one-pointedness, that is what is the real truth and what it is that we really want comes forth. Or what, you know, I think about these moments when, you know, I remember one specific moment when my mind was saying one thing and my heart was saying something else. And I made lists of the pros and cons of doing a particular thing. And the pro list was really long and the con list was very short. But I decided against it because there was something that was telling me that con list was just something contrived or something, you know. And there was just one other point that I wanted to make. Just a second, I took too many notes, sorry. Oh, what you were talking about, one of the things I wanted to say, what you were talking about, returning to normal. I was thinking, you said returning to your own territory. I was like, yeah, returning to attachment.
Yeah, right.
Because really what that spaciousness is when we disconnect from all of this overlay. And that also plays into the other point that I wanted to make, if I can find it again. Oh, you said make space around the house to keep it from catching fire. And I was thinking that shock that we have from illness or from death, and difficulty or things like that, that's what, you know, it's like the Zen master hitting the ground or hitting the student or shouting or something. You know, it just kind of, for a moment, it just disconnects you. You know, nothing matters that much. All those plans that you were made, someone dies and it's like, none of that matters anymore, you know? And your heart really comes forward. And, you know, I feel like that's what's really happened to you. You're in a state of shock, which just all that other stuff that you were thinking about before that is no longer important, as important.
Right.
It gives you a different perspective on it. So those are my thoughts about it. And thank you for telling us about foods. I would appreciate it if you could mention, you said cucumbers and watermelon, other kinds of cooling foods, because I think that's very helpful for us to be aware of.
Well, there are many flowers. You know, honeysuckle is good. You can put that in salads. That's very delicious.
Ah.
Anything that's, of course, like lettuce, salad. Basically, you know, it's anything that's rich in water. You know, that's hydrating. We want to avoid anything that dries us up, anything that diuretic. You know, and unfortunately in our culture, this is really not what we're doing. So it's no wonder also that temperatures are so high. You know, like a barbecued meat in summer, really from the health point of view is really an aberration. You know, it's red and calcified and heat. It's not really appropriate. But all the things that are light, mint is a great ally in the summer. all the, all the mild spices, also the herbs that help digestion, so that you don't have a fiery digestion, because with the humidity in summer, we tend to have damp, what we call in Chinese medicine, damp conditions, maceration, things go bad easily. So that's another thing to be careful about, to just, eat as fresh as possible, not to let things sit in a fridge too long. And nothing that will make maceration. So you have lots of digestive problems, people vomiting, or because usually of getting too much cold and too much heat. For example, in Arizona, we talked a lot in Chinese medicine about what we call the Mexican syndrome. And the Mexican syndrome was simply to take very spicy food with cold beer. And the conjunction of the two can be really deadly. Actually, I had a neighbor who ended up in the hospital with, her small intestine twisting under the shock. And she had done just that for her birthday. She and her husband had gone over the border in a restaurant they really liked, and had eaten very spicy food with cold beer. And it can be cold beer or cold water. So that's another thing to be watchful for in the summer, is too much of a contrast. Mm-hmm. It's better to have, things that are out of the fridge that you let come back to room temperature, including water and drinks, avoiding cold waters. Icy water is deadly in terms of digestive health. So, the Chinese way of doing it, of drinking lukewarm tea or lukewarm water, is much, much better, at least at room temperature. And avoiding, like ice cream is not great either. So I know it's not very popular to say that, but one thing, of course, then I always tell my students, when I say, okay, now I know we're going to come to negotiation time. And so, because it's like, well, can I have a little bit, at least a little bit, or what can I do? So there are ways you can mitigate that. Of course, number one, make healthy ice cream without, not sugar, dairy, as pure as you can. The other thing is to make it melt in your mouth before you swallow, so that it's not as cold in the stomach. And the way of the Chinese is to have some warm tea, or lukewarm tea that they drink right after, so that to warm the stomach. So those are some of the possible negotiations.
Mm-hmm. When you say spices that help digestion, you're talking about like ginger and
No,
what
no,
else?
no. Well, ginger, you don't want to make it too hot, very light. It can
Okay.
help actually, but very light. You don't want to make it spicy to the taste.
Okay.
Just a gentle flavor. And then when I talk about spice, it's like strong spices. Like jalapeno and the red pepper, things like that. But the gentle spices that grow in our gardens, like thyme, and those are actually good because they have very neutral, gentle warmth that helps the stomach digest better, give more spaciousness in our stomach to work better. There's also a great herb, which is hawthorn, hawthorn fruit. You can make really nice tea that's good for the heart and for the digestion. So hawthorn tea is a very good summer drink as well. Mint, What else could I tell you? Of course, make also some fruit tea. You know, like you put some pieces of peaches and berries in a
Strawberry.
that you let macerate in water overnight, and you have a few slices of cucumber in it, and you have a great refreshing drink the next day. So you can also really create teas and drinks from some of these foods that are rich in water.
Okay, well, I don't think we should open it up for discussion. We've got a few announcements to make, and I think that maybe you're maybe getting a little tired and should rest.
Thank you, Teijo.
Thank you so much. I mean, for me, this was really great. This is always helpful. What you help us get into the understanding of the season. It's really helpful to me. And also hearing what kind of foods to eat is useful. I don't necessarily think in that way. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you all.
I guess we'll give back the merit and then have the announcements, or should we have the announcements and then get back the merit? Go for it and make the announcements. They're part of the practice.
Okay. Today is there's something special going on. It's Wesak, which is celebrating the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and death. And there will be some ceremonies happening at Urban Dharma in West Asheville, kind of a collaborative effort among the Sanghas in Asheville. And Teijo will be participating. It starts at 2:00. So for those who are there, that will be something you might want to do. So today, the work practice period at Great Tree for folks who are there in person will be abbreviated. It'll last from 11 to 12:30, so everybody can go participate in Wesak if they'd like to. So that's today. Tomorrow, there is the monthly family meditation, and that's from 10:30 to 11:30. And that is focused to include little people as well as others who more often come and participate. So that's available on Zoom, or I believe in person too, right, Teijo?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting. So if anyone is free at 10:30 tomorrow, with or without their kids, it's different and wonderful. Okay, and then there are the regular more weekly events besides Saturday morning talks. There is in person and on Zoom on Thursday evening from 6 to 7 Zazen. So you could join that if you like. And then Zoom only on Wednesday morning early at 6 to 7:30, and then Tonglen on Thursday morning from 9:30 to 10. So you can look at the calendar online and get refreshed on all of those. But those are the happenings this week.
Thank you. And next week, who's speaking next week? What is it, June 1st? Is next week June? Yeah, June 1st.
June
That's
1st.
it will be Caroline Young. Savannah is her Dharma name, and she's going to be giving the second in the series of the Word of the Buddha that they give at Anathatamaga. The first one we heard from Star Nolan last month. So I can't remember which one. I think this one might be the Four Noble Truths, but I was just looking at it yesterday. But anyway, you can find it on our calendar. May the merit of this practice.
May the merit of this practice
Benefit all beings.
benefit all beings
And bring peace.
and bring peace.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.